Part 2 of My Brother Proposed to My Fiancé, his ex, and I'm mad. If you haven't watched the first part of the story yet, click the link in the description. Now, second update 2 months after the first update. It's been a while since I've posted, but a few things have happened since my last talk with Mark. So, I've been low contact with Mark since our last conversation. I haven't called him and he hasn't called me. And our only interactions have been in family settings. As it stands, my mom is now upset that Mark is still uninvited for my wedding. It started with a comment made during my younger sister Sophie, 22 female's birthday. Her boyfriend of I think 4 years proposed to her at the end of the night, and we sat around talking about what she envisioned for her dream wedding. She talked a bit about wanting a destination wedding and her ideas for the cake and dress. Then she said something along the lines of, "Teddy, I know Mark's banned from your wedding, but you won't care if he comes to mine, right?" I laughed it off and told her I can't get mad about her guest list, even if I wanted to. My mom gave me this weird look and asked if Mark was still not invited to my wedding. I told her yes, and she got irritated. She told me she thought I was joking and said I was being unreasonable to go through with banning him from the wedding since his family. She accused me of holding a grudge just to be petty. I reminded her that he and I agreed on him not coming. I then told her that this wasn't a time to talk about my wedding since the day was about Sophie. And if Mark or her want to talk about my wedding, they can call me another time. Sophie laid into my mom a bit about trying to make her special day about Mark, and my mom dropped the issue. For those of you who might be wondering, Mark wasn't at Sophie's party because he apparently had to work and couldn't make it. A few days later, my mom stopped by my house and said she wanted to discuss my wedding. She asked me why I was so adamant about Mark not coming to my wedding. She said that I shouldn't be so insecure about Mark and Jen's previous relationship, and that uninviting him was a step too far. I told her again that Mark and I mutually agreed on him not coming to the wedding, and he can come to me about it himself if he has a problem with it. We got into an argument and she said that if I wasn't going to reinvite Mark, then she would not be coming either because I'm ostracizing her son. I shrugged and told her that if that's what she wants, then she can toss her invite to the trash, because I won't beg her to be there. She asked me if I would really be okay with her not attending, and I told her it wouldn't be the first time she missed an event of mine because of Mark. She said I was being an a-hole for throwing her past mistakes in her face, and she stormed out. I then started getting messages and phone calls from her and a few family members about the whole situation, saying I was in the wrong and urging me to invite Mark just to keep the peace. Jen's also been getting messages from my mom asking her to talk to me and get me to change my mind, but to my knowledge, she hasn't been responding. So far, most of my mom's side of the family are standing in solidarity with her and not attending, while my dad and his side of the family, which is only my aunt and uncle and their 2 kids, agree with me and are still coming. My sisters are also still coming to the wedding, and of course Jen's family too. Also, I talked to Mark about it and asked him if he had a problem with not having an invite. He said he uninvited himself in the first place, and he doesn't get why they're making a big deal because he still doesn't want to go. He told me to leave him out of the fighting because he's not involved, and he says he'd tell her the same. As of now, I'm back to being low contact with my mom, but my dad and I are still on decent terms. I'm still deciding on whether I'll reinvite my mom and her family should they change their mind about the boycott, but the chances are low, and I told my dad this too, which he understands. For now, Jen and I started looking into downsizing the venue since the guest list is significantly smaller. Now for the comments before reading more updates. Well, now we know where Mark gets his crazy from. Yikes. I bet update 4 will be that Mama shows up in a white dress and makes an announcement of how Jen has torn her family apart. Update 5 will be how at her sister's wedding, she will talk loudly to anyone who will listen how horrible you both are. She needs therapy. Stat. We know where Mark gets his crazy from. First thought I had while reading this. Though I have to say that Mark's "I want to stay out of it and will tell mom to keep me out of it as well" stance is surprisingly mature here. If it's actually true and he isn't fanning the flames behind the scenes, that is. Mark is the golden child, duly noted. It's also so sad Mark won't at least tell his mommy that being uninvited to your wedding was his idea, and you just agreed with him after he requested it. I guess that's too much to ask. I've read your previous posts. I'm so sorry the both of you are having to deal with this. This is supposed to be a happy time for you both, and a 1-month relationship many years prior does not bar you from having a long-term relationship with your brother's ex. One, you didn't even know about it until after you both became serious. Brother Dearest is still very immature and needs to get over himself. Maybe get some therapy. Your mother sounds like a narcissist and needs to cut the cord to Mark. Stop protecting him and recognize that she has more kids to mother than Mark. Now for the third update. My mom is uninvited from the wedding indefinitely. About 2 weeks after she decided to not come to the wedding, she came to stop by and said she wanted to clear the air and talk about everything. We agreed and invited her in to join us for dinner. Jen made her a plate of food, and I asked her if she was still planning on not coming to the wedding. She said that while she wants to, she can't get over me not inviting Mark because of a simple mistake. I reminded her that a simple mistake was proposing to my fiancé with me sitting less than 3 feet away from him, and she said it was just a joke. Jen asked her why she wanted to talk if she was maintaining the same stance on Mark coming to the wedding. She said she wanted to talk to Jen, and she was hoping Jen would hear her out and talk me into inviting Mark again. She apparently assumed I was at work and should be able to catch her alone. Jen politely told her that she understood her thought process, but she wouldn't have had that conversation anyway without me present, since this is about my brother. My mom made a comment somewhere in the lines of Jen being spineless and unable to have a conversation without me thinking for her, which started a pretty heated back and forth between the three of us, before Jen told her to get out. She got up and started walking towards the door, and my mom followed her, still screaming at her. By this point, she's yelling about her tearing our family apart. While Jen was unlocking the front door, my mom grabbed her hair and pulled her to the ground, still screaming. She hit her and tried to claw her face, and I dragged her off of her and threw her outside. She banged on the door for a few minutes while I made sure Jen was okay, before she left and called both of us repeatedly. When I was sure Jen was okay, I texted my mom and told her not to bother reaching out again, because we'll never speak to her again. I called my dad and sisters and told them what happened too. My dad was surprised and tried to make excuses, saying she'd been stressed about this whole situation for a while. My sisters say they knew she'd snap eventually, since she's always been a crazy witch, and they said they'd come make sure Jen is okay. I asked Jen if she wanted to press charges, but she declined and said she only wanted to cut contact with her for good. I said that part was obvious, but she should still talk to the police since she was physically assaulted. But she doesn't want my mom to get arrested. My sisters and Jen's mom came by to comfort her, thankfully, so she's doing okay. My mom is blocked and everything, until Jen says otherwise. I genuinely don't know what to do now. Jen doesn't want to go to the police because she'd feel guilty having her arrested over this. But my sisters and I want to convince her too, and I'd at least want documentation in case something happens in the future. Edit. Some people were asking questions about my mom and my decision not to be open with Jen about my relationship with my parents. I figure I could give some background on why we're so strained. Like some of you said, Mark was the golden child. Mark was my mom's baby boy, and she didn't do much to try and hide it. They didn't spend much time with my sisters and I like normal parents did with their kids, unless they had to, but they'd spend time with Mark as often as possible, like taking him out shopping while we stayed with a sitter or bringing him home his favorite food and toys from the store where they'd shop alone. He usually got better things compared to the rest of us, like new expensive clothes while ours were thrifted, or new toys just for him compared to old toys we had to share with each other. If my sisters and I got gifts, they were for us to share, but my mom made it pretty clear that Mark's things were only for him and we shouldn't touch it. When Mark would screw up, I'd get punished for not being a good role model and showing him the proper way to behave. For example, Mark went through a phase of breaking his toys, and I got a beating because obviously he learned that behavior from me. When he was 8, Mark got in trouble at school for trying to push a kid down the stairs. I was grounded for 2 weeks and told to apologize to the kid for not teaching my brother right. When I turned 13, I pushed for my parents to start giving me an allowance. They agreed as long as I did household chores, like mowing the lawn, taking out the trash, raking leaves, etc. It was usually around $25 a week to help me start saving. Mark saw that I was getting money, and he begged my parents for an allowance too. Instead of making him work, $10 of my allowance money was given to him each week, because we were doing such a good job with our chores that he never touched. Whenever I ask him to help, he'd tell me it's not his job to do chores, so why should he bother? It was around this time that I started really distancing myself from my brother. By the time I entered high school, we only talked to each other when we needed small favors, or when we absolutely had to. I got my first job when I turned 17 because I wanted to finally get my own car and make money that they couldn't force me to give to Mark. My oldest sister Maggie helped me start my own bank account and showed me how to properly budget and save my money. I got my first car at 18, after all of my hard work. When Mark got his license, my parents asked me to let him use my car to get around and for some extra practice behind the wheel. Reluctantly, I agreed, and for a while, the arrangement was fine. Mark used my car when I didn't need it and helped maintain it pretty well. When he expressed wanting my parents to buy him his own car, my mom came to me and told me to give him my car because I needed it more. When I refused, she threatened to kick me out. We got in a fight that night, which ended with her giving Mark my car and taking me to transfer ownership of it to him within the following few days. Since I didn't have anywhere else I could go at a time, I just sucked it up and sided over. When I graduated high school, both of my parents skipped my graduation because Mark didn't want to sit in a long ceremony just to see me get a piece of paper, and my mom didn't want to leave him alone for the night. So I only had the support of my sisters and my aunt and uncle who wanted to take me out. They ended up having to bring me home at my parents' request because they made me dinner to make it up to me. It was a dinner I couldn't eat because my mom put shrimp and chicken on the same serving dish, and I'm allergic to shellfish. My first year out of high school, I worked 2 jobs to buy myself another car. And at the start of the new school year, I moved away for college and cut contact with them. They, mostly my mom, tried to reach out for the first few months via social media, and Sophie. But I never responded, and I told Sophie she would be cut off too if she kept trying. When she couldn't get to me through Sophie, she tried going through my older sister Charlotte, and a few times Maggie and Mark, until I threatened to file a restraining order for harassment. It was a bluff because I had no idea how to do it, but it managed to scare her off, and the most I got from her was happy holiday texts over the years. Around the time I moved back, Charlotte told me that they had been seeing a family therapist at Charlotte's request, and my parents wanted to apologize for their treatment of us. I was hesitant, but I agreed as long as they would be genuine, and a reconciliation process started when I moved back home. That doesn't even scratch the surface of everything they put me through, and it took a lot for me to even begin to let them back into my life. When I met Jen, I wasn't sure where my relationship with her was going or where my relationship with my parents was going. I didn't want to mention my family at all, mostly because I was ready to cut contact again if I needed to. Jen was understanding of it being a sore subject and didn't press for more. I hope this helps shed some light on some of the questions I'd been seeing pop up. I would have made any reconciliation pivotal to whether or not they reimburse you for the car your mother stole. 1, I can't imagine favoring one child out of our 3. But 2, it's completely and horrifyingly unbelievable that your parents treated all their other children so awfully and incredibly disproportionately compared to the golden child Mark. And I'm really concerned that your sisters thought this was normal family dynamics to the point that they became flying monkeys for your mother. A, getting reimbursement for the car wasn't a hill I was willing to die on, since the damage was already done. Even now it's hard to believe Mark was the favorite. There wasn't anything really special about him. I don't mean that as an insult either. He was just a regular kid. My parents weren't having fertility issues. He wasn't a miracle, wasn't a meal ticket. They weren't having marital problems and using a baby as Band-Aid. He was just born and they decided to love him more than us. And believe me, they didn't think this was normal. They just have a soft spot for our parents because they are our parents, and they believe they have redeeming qualities. Mate, your parents and Mark are a-holes. You did the right thing by cutting your mother out and going low contact with your brother. Honestly, they're not family. You just share DNA with them. Live your life with the ones that matter and care for you. I do hope Jen presses charges. It sounds like the only way your mom will learn that actions have consequences. Take care and good luck. Thanks, bud. Pressing charges isn't in our future right now. We're just trying to get to the wedding. Now for the last update. I want to thank everyone who's taken the time to give me advice on what to do going forward, and all the kind messages and comments I've gotten over the past few days/weeks. Jen and I have read the comments together and everything is appreciated. To answer the most common question about why I chose to reconnect after everything, the short answer is because I would do anything for my sisters. Charlotte wanted the entire family around for the birth of her first child and to help her while she adjusts. She didn't want part-time aunts and uncles who would only visit her kid during birthdays and holidays. She was never the type to ask for much of anything growing up, so when she asked if I would be willing to try for her, I agreed, because it would make her happy. I also think part of me hoped that maybe they'd changed. I don't regret trying to reconcile either. My parents are still terrible, but I met the love of my life, so I call it a win. A few people wanted to know if there's an update, so here we go. Sorry if it's a mess or confusing. A lot has happened. We filed a report with the police and we were told that even though Jen doesn't want to pursue anything, it's not up to us to decide whether it goes further, but they would keep our preference in mind. We provided some pretty decent evidence of the assault, including pictures of Jen's face and texts with my mom and dad talking about what happened. We were advised to report and record any other incidents with my mom going further, in case anything else happens. Considering where we live, I doubt it'll go anywhere, but at least we have it on record. I got about 100 angry text messages that tell me they at least spoke with her regarding the incident. My mom tried to corner me leaving my job and screamed at me about trying to ruin her life. She kept screaming that I was an awful son for trying to get her arrested over a small misunderstanding, and she didn't understand what she'd done to deserve being punished like this. I told her that if she didn't like being in legal trouble, then she shouldn't have hit Jen. She demanded I tell the police to forget the report, which I refused. I told her exactly what the officer said about it being out of my hands. She had a tantrum in the parking lot and hit me a few times, just on the chest and arm before security intervened and dragged her off the property. I had to talk to my boss about the incident. Luckily, she was understanding of everything going on after I explained what was happening. When I got home, I told Jen what happened. She was upset and asked that we discuss the plan with my family moving forward. It was a long talk, but we took the advice of some Redditors and decided to go completely no contact with my family, aside from my sisters. We agreed that having them in my life is adding unnecessary stress for the both of us, and we aren't even married yet. She told me she wanted to consider moving away and putting some distance between us and my family. She said that she'd try to stay out of my family issues because it's not her place, but she refuses to put up with my mom and her behavior or my dad enabling her abuse. A lot more was said, too much to put in this post, but I agreed with her that they were more trouble than they're worth, and I also don't want to put up with this anymore. I also agreed to go to therapy, and she's helping me find a therapist. I decided to call my dad after our talk and let him know I would be going no contact. He didn't answer the first time I called, so I left a message asking to have a long talk. When he called back, he asked if it was okay for my mom to be a part of the conversation. I told him it was okay, since she needed to hear what I had to say too. The conversation went about as well as you could expect. I told them both that Jen and I are cutting them out of our lives. My dad demanded to know why I would do something like that, after going through all the trouble of repairing our relationship. I told him that this entire thing with Mark has shown me that nothing is actually repaired between us. And as far as they're concerned, the world revolves only around my mom and my little brother. I told him that their continued favoritism of Mark has brought our relationship to a point of no return, and that I wasn't interested in holding on to a failing relationship. I told them that I agreed to reconcile for Charlotte's sake, but I don't appreciate all of the disrespect towards me and Jen, and that I wouldn't put up with it anymore for both of our sakes. To my mom specifically, I told her that I was tired of her using me as a scapegoat for her bad parenting and Mark's attitude. I also told her that I would never forgive her for what she did to Jen and what she did to me and my sisters growing up. She started to say how I should move on like my sisters have, but I cut her off and told her that she should take her forgiveness and move on, because she would never receive it from me, especially after everything she's done this last few weeks. She started crying and asking me how I could treat her like such a villain. I told her she could only be upset with herself because I've done nothing wrong. She cried harder and told me how much she regretted having me, and how I've only tried to ruin her life. This started a heated argument between her and Jen once again, and Jen told her in much more colorful words that she was disgusting, and plenty of other nice names, for saying something like that to me. I don't know if she left the room or just decided to shut up, but my mom stopped talking when Jen was done speaking to her. My dad said he wasn't okay with being shut out of my life, and he asked me to try to understand my mom's point of view. He said that she was also struggling because her kids were at odds, and I was being unfair to punish her for her struggles with raising and caring for us. The last thing he said was that we were a family, and I shouldn't let past mistakes stop us from moving forward. I told him that the only person she ever cared for was Mark and herself, and there was nothing he could say or do to make me change my mind. I told him that it was up to him whether to keep my number, but I would be blocking him and my mom everywhere, and I wouldn't be reaching out again. Then I hung up. Afterward, I sent a long email with a link to my posts attached to my entire family and inviting everyone, except my aunt and uncle and my sisters, to the wedding. I hadn't cried in a long time, but Jen held me while I cried after writing the email, and she assured me we would be okay. My sisters also reached out to me after reading the email. I apologized to Charlotte for not being able to continue reconciling like she wanted, but she told me it was okay, and it's not my fault I had to cut them off again. The response from my family has been pretty mixed. Some are angry I aired out family issues on a public internet forum, while others are pissed at my parents because they never knew it was this bad. The last person I talked to about everything was Mark. He asked if I was cutting him off too, and I told him I wasn't, but I wouldn't be going out of my way to reach out to him either. He didn't argue, and just wished me the best with the wedding, and we haven't spoken since. Right now, Jen and I are looking for a new place to stay. The plan is to move closer to Jen's brother. He lives about 3 hours from where we are now, and Jen and I like the city he's in. I spoke to my boss about transferring, and Jen is looking into the option of working 100% remotely or possibly finding a new job. And once again, our venue's changed. Since the guest list is significantly smaller, my future brother-in-law is considering letting us use his lake house for our wedding. I don't plan to post anymore about this unless the sky falls, at least not until the wedding, because I want to move on with life. But I'll try to answer any questions some of you might have. Thanks and happy holidays. Thanks for the update. I believe you decided on the only possible way forward. Nothing you will say change your mom. She alone can only change her behavior. And perhaps if she reads all the comments on your Reddit posts, she might get an epiphany and realizes she is a pretty crappy person and has a lot of amends to make if she wants to keep you and possibly your sisters in her life. Maybe therapy can help her, but I doubt it. Best wishes for your upcoming wedding. According to Sophie, she's read a lot of them and doesn't think Reddit strangers have the right to tell her she's a bad person. Lol. I don't think there's any amending left in me. Wish them the best, just as far from me and my family as possible. Update 2. Am I the a-hole for telling my mom that I will respect my dad's girlfriend more than my stepdad? This is part 2 of the story. You can watch the first part by clicking the card above or the link in the description. Second update. I know my post has been viral on Best of Reddit updates. The reposter asked for my permission for it and I want to thank her, because she along with many others have defended my father from people who lack brain cells in my opinion. I was really disappointed in the people who are calling my dad a deadbeat. Some even said that he mistreated my mom, that he has always been an alcoholic, that he was a gambler and a serial cheater. Some even said that my dad should never have custody of me because he was a screw-up. You guys seriously make me question humanity. Here is a guy who sacrificed everything for his daughter, put his own life on hold so that I do not have to feel uncomfortable. And all you guys have is nothing but criticism for him? Shame on you guys for berating someone who had already been through enough. I choose to forgive my dad because he acknowledged his mistakes. Also, he wasn't even that big of an alcoholic. He never had any drinking problem prior to the affair of my mom. Usually, he used to drink in silence and never in front of me. That was the only freaking time he let himself go. Can't you guys just look past it? Or are you guys so petty that you are turning a blind eye on his sacrifices? And no, my dad is not a crappy dad at all. I guess you cannot please everyone. People are just going to draw their own conclusion. Also, please don't insult my intelligence by saying I don't know what happened. Over the last 7 years, I've been driving myself crazy over it. I asked my mom why she did it. I even asked if my dad was a bad husband or abusive, and she denied both of those claims. Also, recently I went through the same tragedy as my dad. I found out that my boyfriend of 2 years was cheating on me with my friend. I understand my dad more now that I am literally walking in his shoes. I'm really devastated. I still cry a lot because of the betrayal I felt from those two people. My dad has tried everything to cheer me up, and I am not in contact with my mom. And I just opened Reddit to keep my mind out of the complications in my life, but looking at how people are literally dragging my dad through the mud just made me angry. Now for the comments before reading the last update. There are always trolls in here, OP. I feel both you and your dad have done a very good job at turning the difficult corners of your life. It is commendable he only turned to despair for 1 year. He is only human. Ignore those who called him deadbeat, / alcoholic, etc. As you know and we know it's not the truth. When the trolls hit the same betrayal, then they will feel it too. Actually, for your dad to pull himself up from alcohol in such a short time is also commendable. You are right to be proud of him. Try to pick selective reading. Read only the good ones and ignore the disturbing ones. Now, I hope to hear good news about your dad, his girlfriend, and you, okay? Take care. My dad is sad because I am sad. We are supposed to go to Disneyland next week. Now I'm not excited anymore. I've always wanted to go there, and my dad promised on my 9th birthday that he would take me. That didn't happen, as you know why. Finally, he wanted to take me there after saving some money, but I don't think I will be able to enjoy it now. I can't even ask him to cancel it because he planned this trip for us for the last 2 years. He is still with his girlfriend. She did visit me yesterday and we talked. As for my mom, I am not talking to her now. It is just too much to handle all at once. Just go no contact with your mother, as she will cause you more sadness. If you were to ask my advice, for now just get a part-time job. Go to the gym, jogging, and find some hobby, as you are suffering because of your mother and your ex-boyfriend and ex-friend. You need to go out and find something. Just be happy. Well, I'm trying. My dad planned to take me to Disneyland next week, but I don't think I can enjoy it. Part of me wants to tell my dad to cancel it, but then again he would lose a lot of money. I always wanted to go there, but now I just can't get excited. OB, you seem like you have a good head on your shoulders. Please do not take any haters of your dad seriously. Ignore the trolls. Haters do not know what you and your dad went through, do not know your day-to-day activities, and may be projecting too much. Keep being strong, proud of you, and wishing you the best going forward. Also, wear your sunscreen. The last one made me laugh. Thanks. I will. Now for the last update. A lot of you have messaged me and asked to keep you guys updated. So, before I update, I want to thank those of you who have come to show support for me and my dad. I have read or tried to read your messages and comments, and honestly, those positive messages really got to me. I was not upset by the trolls. Also, I had beef with few of them too, but if I ever said something bad, then please forgive me. I'm still a little sad. Anyways, back to the update. Well, from my last post, you guys can see that I have in fact been cheated on. It is funny because in my first post, I mentioned that the last time I had a fight with my stepdad, I told him I hope his son gets cheated on, so he knows how that feels. And now here I am losing my boyfriend and my friend because they stabbed me in the back. I guess it is karma. The breakup is still fresh in my mind. I still cry sometimes thinking about it, but I am glad I have my other friends, and obviously my dad with me, so I can hope I will be fine. And yes, I did end up going to Disneyland with my dad, and we had a lot of fun. But my dad ended up becoming sick after we came back for a little while. He is better now. I guess he had some bad food on the trip. Otherwise, he is fine. I finally spoke to my mom. She came to visit me at my dad's house. My dad rarely sees her, so he was also shocked to see her. She looked a bit out of place, as if she was entering Narnia. She wanted to talk to me and my dad. Dad went inside his room to give us some privacy to talk. Then we sat down. She apologized to me for acting so irrationally and never taking my feelings into account. I don't know what happened, but I asked her if she ever felt any guilt for cheating on my dad. She cried and said that she has always been guilty of how things ended between my dad and her. She didn't go much into details, but at the same time, my dad and her were having some marriage problems. She and Dad wanted to work things out, but she was still feeling empty. Then, my stepdad came and she found an escape from her life with him. She said she was selfish. She wanted to have it all, but she knew someday her lies will be caught, and it did. She mentioned that she and Dad have grown distant because of the affair. She does regret and wishes she could have handled it better. She has spent 7 years or more with my stepdad, but deep down she still had feelings for my dad. Some days she even wakes up and guilt washes over her. She regrets ever starting the affair. The problem was not my dad nor my stepdad. The problem was her, and she knows she has messed up a lot. I also opened up to her about my struggles in life, how I had to deal with the downfall of their marriage, and how it has affected me over the last few years. I wish she had just ended things in a good way, rather than introducing a man that has become the bane of my existence. I wish he hadn't pushed me to accept him, knowing the pain it cost both me and my dad, and he doesn't even seem to feel any remorse. She cried heavily this time and said she knows now how wrong it was, but she thought that if I accepted my stepdad, then the affair wouldn't look so bad on her. I wanted to tell her that she was stupid, and that's not how it works. I then asked her why she was so obsessed with Layla, my dad's girlfriend, and she told me that ever since their divorce, there has always been a little spark of hope that someday her and Dad would be together. She knows it is foolish for her to think that, but her subconscious mind was telling her that she and Dad are the endgame. But learning that he has moved on and started dating just freaked her out. I told her that is BS, because she was the one who married her affair partner and went on to have a family with him. It is so disgusting and immoral for her to even think that, especially after she was the one who cheated and left. If she still thinks that she has a chance with Dad, then she is either delusional or simply stupid. She doesn't get to dictate how others feel and doesn't get to control what I feel. She says she understands and has been a mess for a long time. She opens up about her own marital situation, which is not good at the moment. I also shared my story of being cheated on. She tried to hug me and said it will be okay, but it just made me angry. I told her I don't need her sympathy now, especially in matters of cheating. I do love her as a mother. I am grateful that she has cared for me and especially being honest with me about the situation. But I do not want to talk to her now. I want to go low contact until she sorts things that are messed up with her. She needs therapy, and she only should focus on my half-brother. After our conversation ended, my mom and dad talked in his room. I didn't try to eavesdrop or tried to listen, so I do not know what they talked about. But after coming out of the room, my mom looked very defeated. After that, we talked a little and she bid us goodbye. I did tell her that I want her in my graduation and other big events, but I want to have some boundaries when it comes to my stepdad. So that closes the mom chapter for a while. And yes, my dad knows about my mom's meltdown, and that's why I wanted to talk to her in private. I don't think this issue is solved here. I honestly laughed a little because my dad and mom has not been in contact for a long time, and he should know. On the bright side, I did get to meet Layla's kids. Ever since my dad became sick, she has been coming frequently to cook or clean. Sometimes she would bring her kids, and I do enjoy playing with them. I always wished to have siblings, and now I have 3. Hopefully this will be my last update. I honestly thank anyone who has given me some good advice and comments. I hope you guys have a lovely life, and thank you so much for the support. Good on your mom for finally looking at this from another perspective and accepting and apologizing for your experience rather than focusing solely on her own. I think going low contact with her makes sense though. Just because she's finally apologized and seems to realize the magnitude of what she did doesn't mean you have to forgive her. And she doesn't seem ready for a real relationship if she's still holding out hope for something to happen with your dad. Best wishes, OP. I don't want her to only focus on me because she has bigger problems in her own marriage now. I'm fine. I have people here, so I shouldn't be her first priority now. That is a great attitude, but also please don't worry about being a little selfish. You're not an adult yet, and a parent's responsibility and focus should always be their kids to a certain extent. If you need her, don't avoid contacting her because you want to give her the space to focus on her struggling marriage. Wow, yeah, the mother is at least a bit delusional here, but it seems she's been forced to see reality now. Hope things get better for her going forwards, but it's a hole she dug herself into, and now she has to climb back out of. You don't get to do that kind of thing without consequences. You would think all those years of her daughter hating her would have made her see reality. Only her jealousy over her ex-husband made her see reality. At least she finally admitted it. This is the worst part to me. Her daughter's pain and hatred didn't matter to her, only that she lost her delusion of being able to go back to the relationship she destroyed when her ex started dating. That poor man scraped the bottom of the barrel when he found this lady. I'm honestly displeased that she felt the need to defend her father more than once. Those a-holes aren't worth her attention. In her second last post, she was referring to the original post in BORU. I did see people saying her dad must have been having gambling problem, or maybe he also cheated or he always had drinking problem. I saw a lot of them dogpiling in Opie's dad. The comments were ridiculous. People blaming his drinking even after Opie clarified multiple times that only started after the affair/divorce. Some people just want to stay on their bandwagon. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my dad's wife that +1s don't get accommodations? My 27 female and my husband welcomed our daughter 7 months ago. I do not live in the same country as my divorced parents, so they both separately came to meet the baby when she was born. My dad met her when she was a month old and hasn't been able to make it back since, so we planned a visit for later in the month and asked if he could bring his wife Anna, which I said was okay. Over the past week, Anna has been asking for an increased number of changes to the plans we've made for the week. She wants to go to different places, different restaurants. She even tried to change the dates to be more convenient for her. I was getting a bit fed up of this and told my dad numerous times that I'd planned things with him, myself, and my daughter in mind. So I didn't really appreciate Anna thinking she could mix and match what she wanted to do. My dad said he understood, but that still didn't stop him texting me with her requests, all of which I declined. Yesterday, she texted me directly asking if we could plan a day trip to a town an hour and 15 minutes away because she'd always wanted to go there. I told her I'm absolutely not going on a 4-hour round trip to a town I've been to 400 times with an infant, and if she wants to go, she must organize that in her own time. She responded that this trip was her own time, to which I said she is welcome to hire a car and drive there at any time she wants, but I will not be going. She said it wasn't fair that I hadn't acquiesced to any of her requests, at which point I got irritated and told her that +1s don't get to make the schedule, and that if she didn't like the itinerary, she shouldn't feel pressured to come. My dad blew up on me for saying this, saying I should have just asked him to handle it. And now I've upset her by insinuating that she wasn't welcome, which I don't think I did. I told my dad I'm not fussed whether she comes or not, but she is tagging along on this trip to see his granddaughter, and she needs to be respectful of that. He said that is not how she saw it, that she saw it as more of a communal holiday, and that I was harsh for what I said, and an a-hole for sticking him in the middle. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Let's break it down. 1. You are a new mom, recovering from a birth still, and you and your husband have a 7-month-old infant. 2. Your dad's wife is making weird and unreasonable extra travel demands and pretending the trip to bond with your baby is her own personal holiday. 3. Your own dad won't even stand up for you and is mad you somehow put him in the middle? He is putting you in the middle by not standing up for you. Just know, enjoy your new little family, though I truly hope your dad comes around. I feel like your title is a bit misleading actually, and leaning toward your dad's wife's side. The real problem seems to be that she is trying to turn bonding time into her personal holiday. To be fair to him, he did tell her no to her previous requests when I said I wasn't happy. I think he wanted me to keep funneling communication through him so that he could manage her better. Honestly, this sounds like it's your dad's fault. He should have stopped funneling her requests to you when you made it clear you weren't interested in them, and talked to his wife about making their own touristy plans together or whatever in their free time in your country. Since I assume you didn't have your dad's schedule planned down to every minute, there's nothing stopping him and Anna from doing stuff. Anna shouldn't have texted you directly. She is tagging along on this trip to see his granddaughter, and she needs to be respectful of that. He said that is not how she saw it, that she saw it as more of a communal holiday, and that I was harsh for what I said and an a-hole for sticking him in the middle. However, Anna's viewing the trip is your dad's fault. He is the one who has communicated about this trip with her and invited her, so her perception of the trip is his fault. It's not yours and it's not necessarily hers. Your dad needs to compromise here with both parties, you and Anna, because if he wants to bring Anna on this trip, it sounds like he and Anna occasionally will need time to do their own thing, which is totally valid when you're traveling to a different country and want to do some different stuff. And with a 7-month-old, there will be a plenty of downtime. He and Anna need to work this out without involving you. I agree. I probably do need to talk to him about that. But also, if she views this as her own holiday, I don't understand why she keeps making suggestions that I need to be involved in. If you have a restaurant you want to go with my dad, go. If it's your trip, I don't have to. My best friend's ex-mother-in-law demands my friend become a submissive wife to her stalker's son. This is part 2 of this stalking ex story, posted almost a month after the last update. If you haven't watched the first part yet, click the link in the description. Now on to the story. This is an ongoing mess with my female 29 best friend's female 30, ex-male 29, and now her ex-mother-in-law. Now, my bestie never married her ex, but for simplicity's sake, I'll refer to her ex's parents as ex-mother-in-law and ex-father-in-law. Bestie and I live together with my parents in a newly bought house. She's pretty much a daughter to my parents, and we are platonic life partners by this point. Her ex ghosted her for 3 years and has been hounding her ever since he found out we bought a house, trying to get her to take him back and live in our house. We've tried reaching to the police, but since nothing serious has happened, we've reached a wall and can only wait. Her ex-in-laws no longer live in the US, but they did come for Thanksgiving. Though my bestie is no longer dating their son, she offered to pick them up at the airport and take them to their hotel. Reason I was told was they would do that for her when she was in college. I didn't like it since her ex is a problem, but she wanted to use the chance to ask her ex's parents to intervene and maybe get him off her back. I still didn't like it, but I figured they probably were okay, based on how she described them. And I was completely wrong. My bestie arrived in tears and with a scratched cheek. Immediately I asked her what happened and now I'm seeing red. The next part comes from how my bestie described things to me. Bestie told me picking them up went well, and they had talked about the old days. They asked my bestie if they could stop in a nearby restaurant they always liked, and bestie, being her usual self, decided to treat them to lunch. All hell broke loose at a restaurant though. Apparently, her ex-mother-in-law demanded to know why bestie did not take her abusive stalker ex back. According to ex-mother-in-law, my bestie is responsible for her baby boy since she was his girlfriend, and they were married in the eyes of God. To start, they'd never legally marry, and bestie is an atheist. So yeah, Bestie tried to defuse the situation, explaining she's moved on with her life after 3 years not knowing where he was. She did try to ask her ex-mother-in-law to convince her son to leave her alone and that Bestie just doesn't want him in her life anymore. Ex-father-in-law seemed to agree with her and apologized for all the heartache and pain she went through. Ex-mother-in-law, however, took over the conversation and began screaming that thanks to my bestie, her son had no life. That apparently, my bestie was responsible for her firstborn not having a wife for children. And the least she could do is take responsibility and become the submissive wife he deserved. Ex-father-in-law tried to pull his wife away, more than likely because they were causing a very public scene. Bestie simply said she would not ever consider marriage to her ex. She then said it might be best to take the food to go and for them to go to their hotel. She paid all the food, despite ex-father-in-law offering to cover his and his wife's meal, and drove them to the hotel. On the way to the hotel is where things went from 1 to 100. Ex-mother-in-law had spent the whole drive escalating demands. From taking him back to marrying him, to have a child and give her son a house as demand in the relationship. Ex-father-in-law apparently kept telling her to stop, but there was no way she could be quiet. Finally, my bestie had enough, stopped the car and told ex-mother-in-law she will never take a failure of a man like her baby boy as a husband, let alone give birth to his spawn. That she was glad no other woman had stayed long-term with him, since he really won't be a good addition to the gene pool. I gotta admit, I'm proud of her for that last one. Ex-mother-in-law went crazy and jumped on my friend. Her husband luckily grabbed her, but she still manages to get my friend on the cheek. She began screaming BFF was the reason her family had split, called her a whore in our native language, and said she wished our house burnt with all of us inside. Ex-father-in-law just told my friend to drop their bags on the sidewalk and drive away while he held back his demon of a wife. And Bestie did exactly that. Next thing she did was drive back to us. She was not so much hurt by the insults or even the attack, but more the notion that a woman she once saw as a second mother would treat her like this. I told her to just relax a bit, so she's watching some movies with the dogs while I write this and do some work. Tomorrow we're both calling out and just having a girls' day with my mom. I did get in touch with the ex's sister and let her know what happened. She already knew from her dad and asked if Bestie was pressing charges. She should, but she's not. I tried to convince her, but it's a sore topic for her, so for her emotional well-being I'm not going to push it. The sister said she appreciates we're not pressing charges and that she'll make sure her family doesn't bother us in any way. Apparently she already had her brother moved outside the city. Not sure how or where, but I'm glad he's gone. So hopefully we're done. We're going to avoid going out too often until we know the ex-monster-in-law is gone from the city. It's not a small city by any means, but I wouldn't put it past these crazies to try to stalk my bestie. Now for the top comments before reading the last update. Pressing charges will expedite the restraining order. Your bestie seriously needs to rethink her decision. The ex-mother-in-law is deranged and dangerous. Another good reason to press charges is to establish documentation of the ex-mother-in-law's violent behavior. If, hopefully not, a fire does happen, documentation will point the authorities in the right direction as to who possibly started it. I absolutely agree, but I also know right now is not the right time to push it. I'm hoping my mom can talk to her about it. At the very least, pictures need to be taken of the scratches. Pictures sent to an email with a detailed account of the attack, just in case it's needed later. Hopefully ex-mother-in-law is going back to her country. They can find their own way to the airport. Meanwhile, block her on the phone and social. That family, except for the sister, is beyond arranged. Your bestie needs to stay away from that toxic, dangerous family. Bestie needs a reality check because she is still in contact with them. I was thinking the same. At some point, Bestie needs to take accountability for the role she's playing in allowing these people access to her. You're making it worse for yourself, and then you're not even following through to protect yourself. Not only that, but you put OP in danger adjacent. I know, my mom plans to talk to her about it and maybe convince her to do some therapy. Obviously, my mom can't be the therapist, but she knows some people that might be a good fit. Poor father-in-law too. He can't just drop her bag somewhere, but he wishes he could. He has probably been putting up with it for years. That's how these people get so out of control. Everybody knuckles under and doesn't call them out on their behavior. The bestie's doing it too. Just like her son, this mother is crazy. I found it ironic how mother-in-law was yelling about how women should be submissive to their husbands, but then ignored her own husband when he told her multiple times to stop yelling. Now for the update. After Thanksgiving dinner, my mom sent my bestie to have a serious talk. She told her she didn't want to diagnose her, but she was showing clear signs that she needed help, and therapy could be an option. They had a discussion about it, and my friend agreed to seek professional help. Since she lives with my mom, she's not an option, but mom is going to help her find someone. We just came from filing a police report. My friend won't press charges, but we made a paper trail to ensure that it's at least on the record. She apologized for not doing it immediately and for going to meet her ex-in-laws. I told her I understand she's going through a lot of things. We'll see how things go, but she's like a sister to me and I refuse to let her go through it alone. As for people saying I have feelings for her, please stop. Like, seriously stop. She's my family and I don't see her in any romantic or sexual way. It's annoying that people assume just because we have a strong friendship, it means I have romantic feelings. Last story. My 39 female husband, 38 male, fathered a child before we were together and I just found out 14 years later. Original post. After 12 years of marriage and 2 children together, I received a Facebook message yesterday from a woman who told me that she has a 15-year-old daughter that my husband has continually denied since her birth. The child was produced from a one-night stand, and afterwards my spouse did everything he could not to see his child. The mother eventually had his parental rights terminated, and she moved away for many years. Fast forward to now, my husband has buried the secret as deeply as possible. On the other hand, his daughter is now having some issues and her mother contacted my mother-in-law in January, imploring him to reach out to his daughter, threatening to tell me if he did not. Apparently, they had a 30-minute FaceTime which he lied about last night until confronted with evidence her mother provided to me. And then he admitted that it was true, and then he blocked the account so she could not contact him again. Her mother claimed she sent the message out of love and concern for her daughter, and I understand that she wants her to have a connection with her biological father. But she blew my entire life up in the process. My husband has lied and lied and lied. He eventually admitted to everything but only went back into a corner. I asked him to leave the house last night so I could clear my head. But the truth is that I can't even look at him right now. I don't think I've ever felt so dumbfounded, hurt, confused, and betrayed all at the same time. My instinct is to call a lawyer to see where I stand, legally and financially, as I'm not sure I can continue this marriage, knowing that I might never feel like I can trust him again. My family thinks I'm being rash because I'm hurting so much, and this is 12-hour-old information. Also, knowing how he abandoned his first child makes me feel disgusted. Last night, he spoke about her as a mistake and a dark secret. He was never going to tell us about her existence because he was embarrassed. Regardless of what happened between he and I, there is a teenager out there who shares 25% of her genetic material with my beautiful children. I don't want that child, who did not ask to be born into such a messy situation, to be separated from her family forever. Even if he does not want to see her, I'd like my kids to eventually know their half-sister, because she deserves to be loved and supported, even if her father cannot. So now I'm left with options and questions, and I don't know how to proceed. Do I start the process to end my marriage, or do I try to keep my family together? When do we tell our small children about their half-sister? Anyone who has experienced this, all advice is welcome. Now for the top advice before reading the update. You are extending so much grace towards that child and I applaud you. Bottom line is, you will never trust him again. To keep such a secret for as long as he did is reprehensible. We had a great partnership before this. I'm devastated. But I don't want to continue a marriage that was based on lies. I completely understand. This is beyond a lie. This is a child's life. Your life is now forever changed. Why did he say he kept this from you? He said he was embarrassed. Since his parental rights had been terminated so many years ago, it felt like she didn't exist. He kept insisting that she was not his child, just a mistake that he made as a dumb kid. There's more backstory that will make him look even worse, but it's irrelevant at this point, just there to further add insult to his character. It seems like he just makes it worse and worse. Felt like she didn't exist? A mistake? She's a human being and shares 50% of his DNA. I can appreciate that he was stupid at 23, but my gosh. Every statement like these would make me even more disappointed in him as a human being. I feel all of this. I've been with my husband 10 years. If I found out something similar and he acted the way your husband did, I don't think I could ever trust him again. To hold on to such a big secret, to sneak around about it, then to lie when confronted, that's a lot. To top it all off, your mother-in-law knew. I know other Redditors are saying it's about how he has treated you and your children over the last 14 years, but to me it would all feel like a lie. Everyone in this situation needs counseling. I would definitely work on introducing children who share 50% of their DNA. If this child is struggling, knowing her siblings might help. It might also hurt. My mom was abandoned and her father raised other kids. She asked him once why, and he said he wasn't ready to be a father. That only made her pain worse, because why was he ready with them and never came back for her? Everyone involved needs serious counseling, and handle your feelings with your husband in the most honest way you can. Don't try to minimize things because of the idea of what your marriage is supposed to be or what others think you should do. I'm so sorry. He told me that he wasn't ready to be a father at 23 multiple times last night. Is that the best thing he did for her was to terminate his rights? Update. I had a request to post an update, and interestingly enough, I saw a message today that he actually posted in the divorce subreddit after this all happened, but he deleted it, and it was full of half-truths. This is what's been going on, and I will answer some of your questions. The mother, Carrie, of this child, Danny, has been in contact with us both since this happened. She says that the reason they told me after all these years was because Danny wanted to be involved in the lives of her two half-sisters, my bio children. She has not asked for back child support or anything like that. But now Danny has decided that she wants nothing to do with my spouse, and Carrie doesn't seem to be facilitating the relationship with my family the way she originally stated. It seems like something is amiss, but I've been lied so many times that honestly, I just can't tell anymore. The termination of his parental rights. According to the both of them, she tried to push him into fatherhood, and when she finally realized that he had zero interest in being a dad, she had him sign away his rights, and then proceeded to disappear until Danny was 8. My spouse never paid child support and was never asked to pay child support. Both of them have told me that. Then Carrie got married and Jeff adopted Danny. I can't see my spouse's original post, but judging by the comments, it made it seem like he signed his rights away so Jeff could adopt her. But that's a lie. Danny was 8 when she was adopted, not an infant. Carrie tried to contact my spouse to sign those adoption papers in 2016, but he blocked her. So she contacted my mother-in-law, had him sign the papers, and the connection ceased again. Then they disappeared again until June of 2020, when Carrie reached out to my mother-in-law because Danny wanted to connect with her paternal biological family. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law proceeded to have a 2.5-year relationship with Danny through phone/video calls, sending presents/money, all the while hiding it from my spouse and lying to Carrie, telling her and Danny that my spouse knew but wanted nothing to do with them. I know this to be true, as I heard my mother-in-law admit it over the phone to my spouse while I was silent on a 3-way call. My spouse had zero idea that anyone had contact with Carrie or Danny until a week after I found out about this situation. In January of 2023, Carrie delivered my in-laws an ultimatum: either produce Danny's bio dad, or they would contact me and let me know what's been happening over the past 15 years. My spouse then agreed to a video call with Danny, where he promised that he would tell me he'd make an effort to make her a part of our lives. Within hours, he had Carrie blocked, and his mother and sister were so scared of their lie being discovered that they stopped talking to Danny altogether, without an explanation. Fast forward to September 2023, my mother-in-law texts Danny to have a good school year, and that was the last straw that broke the camel's back. A few weeks later, I received a message that would change our seemingly happy life forever. Presently, he has cut off his family completely. Carrie has also cut off all communication with his mother and sister. They're toxic, and it is the right decision for now. He comes from a long line of liars, and he is no different. He and I are both in therapy. Marriage counseling starting next week. I'm having good days and bad, as expected. My oldest child will be starting private therapy as well. We haven't told her about Danny, but I don't feel right about keeping the secret. And I know both of my kids have been suffering from the fighting and disruption to their normally quiet lives. I've been trying to put my pieces back together, but I'm still very shattered. I'm journaling out my feelings, but anger is present a lot. I don't know if I can ever trust him again. I don't know if I can ever trust anybody again. But I'm working on it with a lot of help from my parents, friends, and therapists. How do I build trust again with the father of my children, even if it's just as co-parents? How do you build trust? You don't. You have some self-worth and get you and your kids out of that up situation. This comment made me feel terrible. I actually have a lot of self-worth. I know that I'm a good person, and both myself and my family deserve better than this. Trust is a really important thing for me and anyone who has a heart, even if I just need to build enough to feel comfortable leaving the kids with him alone in his new place.